Galaxy Watch 4.
Pop-up popsicle,
This is a full review.
ice icicle,
And we will also be
testing.
Goedendag, we're DHRME. Deliver honest reviews most effectively.
So we used a bunch of stuff to see if the results you get from the Watch 4 actually match up. Test number 1, blood pressure. So if you're buying a Galaxy Watch and expect to measure your blood pressure right away, you're in for a disappointment. You will have to first get a blood pressure monitor like this to calibrate the watch. But since it's a one-time thing, you can also get away with borrowing it from someone. So what did the test show us? Have a look for yourself.
We'd say, despite all of Samsung's disclaimers, the blood pressure measuring is pretty accurate. First off, I'm not fat, I'm big boned. And in my gym, I did a full body measurement on a machine that involves me holding stuff and standing on stuff. It's called an InBody. And right after, I entered the weight reading from that machine into the Galaxy Watch 4 and compared the two body composition tests. Here are the two measurements side by side. This is what the professional InBody machine gave me. The weight is what I also registered here to be able to get the other information. So the weight is 82.4 and I input that here and then did a body composition test on the watch. Skeletal muscle on the watch is 32 kilos, whereas here is 33.5. I'll go with this because I think I'm more muscular. On the body fat mass, it's at 22.5 kilos, whereas, yeah, it says there's more body fat on the actual analysis with the machine, 23.5, small difference there. Then you have a percentage, which is, yeah, just a straightforward calculation. The BMI, which is calculated at 26.9 on this and 26.3 on the machine. And there's a 43.9 kilo body water composition, whereas it's 43.1 kilos of water in the InBody composition. So what can you take from this? I think they are both fairly close, surprisingly close, but this one does seem to have a degree of variance. Sometimes even if you measure after a couple of minutes or an hour, you get a slightly different reading. So I think this is good to get a ballpark idea of where you are, but I don't think you should take it as accurate medical advice. And I think that's also what Samsung is trying to tell you.
Next test, heart rate and oxygen saturation. So this one you can do on the watch right out of the box. Here's us comparing it to a pulse oximeter.
Now let's get our heart rate up and see how the watch copes up. We think they're pretty accurate.
Next test, battery life and charge time. Next test, workouts and steps.
So I am not a cardio person. Most of my workouts are strength related. All right, I've recorded my workout, which is a 43-minute workout with squats and chest flies and like gym equipment. Right, after digging in a little bit more, you see also a kind of a graphic of your heart rate. It says I reached a max of 160 versus 163. It doesn't really show you a minimum, but you can see on the graph that this minimum is about 73. So in terms of heart rate monitoring, that's pretty good. I also liked that they break up into different heart rate zones. So I didn't really go into a maximum heart rate zone, which I didn't want to. Actually, I went into anaerobic, and that was for 11.4%. In the aerobic zone, I was for 36.8%. And in the weight control zone, which is your calorie burning zone, I was at about 38.3% of the time. In the workout details, you see a little bit more. You see the workout duration, total duration, you see the calories, which is interesting. It's a bit different, but I think that's probably because I have an older weight registered on the Apple Watch. And yeah, so that's what it is. I get 2 trophies. I don't know for what. Yeah, longest duration. It was the first workout I recorded. So in terms of step counting, I've taken a day where I had the Galaxy Watch as well as the Apple Watch on the whole day, and it was not a very active day, so it's interesting to see the differences. It's a 4,500 step on the Apple Watch and a 4,900 step count on the Galaxy Watch 4.
Next test, sleep tracking.
All right, we're going to look at sleep data. To begin with, you kind of see a weekly average. It's very similar, 7 days, 31 days on both. I've recorded 4 days on the Galaxy Watch and of course much longer on the Apple Watch. Let's see what kind of information you can glean from it. So it also gives you kind of your quality of sleep metric here, which is really nice. Let me dig into the Apple Watch. So it shows you consistency of your sleeping, if your sleep is decreasing or not. And that's pretty much it. And that's, it's not so much. Whereas on the Samsung, it shows you how many hours you've slept on the day. It also talks about quality of sleep. You woke up less frequently during the night than usual, so that's good. You see, a lot of it was light, deep. You kind of get that breakup as well. You get your waking time, your REM time, your light sleep, and your deep sleep time. Also shows you some sort of average to see if you're in the right zone. With REM I am, with deep sleep I'm not. And of course, on the latest Galaxy Watch, you have the blood oxygen meter, which means it shows you your blood oxygen monitoring as you sleep. Interestingly, it also records snoring data. If it detects that you're snoring, your phone kicks in and starts recording audio of you snoring. Strange feature, but it's there. I'm not showing off, but I haven't been snoring for the last 4 days.
Next test, calls, speaker, and microphone. Since you're subscribed to us, you know that we do a lot of audio-related content here on the channel. So the speaker is also something we tested. Here's the test. And of course, you can take calls on the Galaxy Watch 4, so here's a call quality test in quiet conditions and with some wind. Also, for good measure, we've thrown in the buds too.
Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3.
We'll talk more about the calls after the test, so stay tuned till the end. Next test, ECG. Here's a comparison of the ECG results from the Apple Watch 5 versus the Galaxy Watch 4. Well, if you're still here, thanks. We're also going to do a review. If you like this 2 for the price of 1, consider hitting like. In no specific order, B for build. We're not a big fan of the strap that comes with the watch in the box. The gap in the buckle is too tight to tuck the remaining tail end. So that's a bit annoying, but luckily you can swap out the strap for any other ordinary watch strap at 20 millimeters for the 40 millimeter version. The strap is good, it's okay, but the materials did cause some itchiness on a sweaty day around the wrist, but that just might be our beautiful sensitive skin. The watch itself is also IP68 rated, meaning that it is water resistant till about 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. It's also military standard 810G rated, which means that the outer body is durable against hard falls. Although that might be the case, it still has glass on the front, and no matter what kind of glass you use, you will get the watch scratched. It's happened with our Apple Watch, and it's happening with this one as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is that Rohan's wrist is 17.5 centimeters. And this is how the 40 millimeter Galaxy Watch 4 looks on him. The Apple Watch 5 is also 40 millimeters, and it suddenly seems very puny on his wrist. A for apps plus the app ecosystem and other extra features. Another important difference is that finally Samsung has moved over to Google Wear OS and has ditched Tizen. But the Google Wear OS still does have a Samsung twist. Even though the Galaxy Watch 4 runs on Wear OS from Google, unfortunately it does not come with Google Assistant, but Samsung Bixby. Now you can install other health apps such as Google's Google Fit on your Samsung Watch. The options are a bit limited, but this is just the beginning. C for calls. Galaxy Watch 4 for phone calls in quiet environments are very usable, although slightly worse when it comes to clarity and volume than being on the phone or earbuds, which is not a shocking result when comparing a watch to a phone or earbuds. It's also worth mentioning that if you have Samsung earbuds, you can control the noise cancelling and block touches on the watch itself. While on phone calls, you see the name of the caller, the option to change the volume, mute, and with the 3 dots button, switch to phone or bring up a keypad. You know, I remember a world where you could plug any earphones into any headphone jack and you would just get audio. But here we are now. Apple has its ecosystem and Samsung has its own. And they keep adding features that only locked-in customers can get.
Now, talking about D for design and the looks of this watch, well, my wife gave me a compliment saying that the watch looked pretty good, and she was comparing it to the Apple Watch that I have. So I would say this, the round design and the fairly simple looking watch is decent. It's not the most fashionable accessory ever, but it looks good. Watch 4 also has a digital bezel crown instead of the physical one on the Classic, and there's pros and cons here. There's $100 difference for the Classic, so that is something you have to consider. And also another thing to consider is, do you really want that physical bezel or crown? Because the bezel gives you some protection against scratches and dings in addition to being another input mechanism. And on the bright side, the advantage of the regular watch is that it's slimmer and more subtle. Other than the bezel, the 2 buttons on the side of the watch work pretty well, pretty reliably. The navigation mechanism is also very simple. There's a back and a home, and you can customize the long press. You have Bixby on long press, and I found that Bixby, despite all the criticism we level against it, does pretty well for very basic commands like, what is 4 times 9? How tall is the Taj Mahal? Set a timer for 7 minutes. I really like the design also because you don't really see any perforations or holes for microphones and speakers. That's pretty cool. The battery lasts about 1 to 2 days, and I like to have always on screens on my watches. So a watch face that has a lot of complications on an always on screen really chews through your battery. So that might be a good tip for you if you want to save battery and still have always on. The default simple watch face, which doesn't have too much happening on the screen, gave me comparable screen time to my Apple Watch 5. The way I did it was I could kind of make it through the day, and then I would charge for an hour right before going to bed. E for experience. A lot of you asked about performance issues, are there stutters, and to be honest, I've had maybe 1 or 2, but in the whole week, that's really not too bad and never at like really critical phases. So very happy with the performance. F for fitness and health. Now Samsung Health is very extensive. You can do a full body analysis as we mentioned, but even the options that are there compared to the Apple Watch have much more detail.
So, should you buy the Galaxy Watch 4? In our view, absolutely. Software from Google and hardware from Samsung have challenged Apple before. Will we see the same again? Get your popcorn, this is just the beginning.
You reached the ending and we've been DHRME. Namaste.